You're the courier. I know. I'm not sure how much your contact told you, but the short version is that I've been paid a great deal to follow you around and keep you alive. Within reason, of course. I won't stalk you around without your approval. This is an unusual contract for me, I'll admit, but I think you'll find me to be quite skilled at my job. Oh, and my name is Charlie, if your contact hasn't told you that already. Shall we depart, or... Met many men named Charlotte, have you? I'm at your command. Do you need something? I wouldn't consider myself much of a conversationalist, but I will answer to the best of my abilities. I doubt that. It's not an especially short tale, and I find it tends to make people uncomfortable. The short version is that I was born a slave, became a toy for raiders, a spectacle in their arena, and then a trainee assassin. If for some reason you want to hear more, ask. An exaggeration, perhaps. In truth, I had a month or so of freedom between my birth and my enslavement. My parents, they didn't want a child. They sold me off to a roving slave trader as soon as they could find one. I don't know what I was worth. It was my owner that named me, taught me to walk and speak, read and write. But most of all, he taught me to be quiet and obedient. If I hesitated, I was flogged. If I disobeyed, I was whipped. And if I failed a task, I was locked in a very small crate. For some time. The only thing he never did to me was harming my resale value. I had to look my best. He wouldn't cripple me, or despoil me. I was a quick study. His other slaves were born free. He had to break them down and remake them in the image he desired. But I was raised from birth to be property. I didn't know any other way, so resistance never crossed my mind. Eventually, when I was quite young, he passed through a raider settlement, and I was sold to their leader. I never saw my original master again. He's dead. Not at my hands, but dead all the same. He was a lieutenant in a slaver ring operated by a man named Schrader. Several years ago, Schrader's ring began to come into conflict with another group, operated by a man named Dietrich. My former master was captured in a skirmish with Dietrich, and they decided to make an example of him for Schrader's crew to witness. They flayed him alive and nailed his skin to the door of Schrader's HQ. How unfortunate for him. You did? Thank you. Yes. The gang leader had certain predilections. He found me appealing. When I wasn't being used for his pleasure, he also found amusement in torturing me. I used to pray that if I did a good job, he wouldn't hurt me. He always found reason to harm me, regardless. Looking back, I recognize sadism as its own reward for those who possess it. Torture amused him. Eventually, he tired of me. I was tossed to the rest of his gang to do with as they saw fit. When I was lucky, they had me do domestic work. When I was unlucky, it was more of what I suffered under their leader. I was often unlucky. This was a large gang. A settlement, really. One of their favorite pastimes was forcing slaves to fight to the death in an arena. Children weren't exempt. Rather, they were the favorite fighters. Eventually, my captors tired of using me and threw me to the arena. Fine. The raiders loved to watch their slaves and captives fight to the death, and children were their favorite. The wrongness entertained them. The one downside for the raiders was that most people have an innate resistance to killing. Children, more than most. The children would spend most of the fights cowering and crying, begging for freedom and forgiveness, refusing to arm themselves. But I was taught from birth to be obedient. I must do whatever my owner commanded, without a flicker of hesitation. When they placed me in the arena and told me to kill, that's what I did. While the others cried and begged, I took up the knife and killed them all. One by one, they fell. I didn't hesitate. That would have been unthinkable. The raiders were stunned. By me. What I had done for them. Watching a little girl cut down her fellows in cold blood amused the raiders more than they could say. And they rewarded me. No more beatings, no more rape, no more domestic servitude. Instead, they praised me for putting on a good show. And they gave me drugs. When I killed for them, not only did the pain finally stop, but the drugs gave me a sense of euphoria I had never known. It was almost happiness. I haven't touched any chems for a long time, but there's some lingering neurological damage. And psychological, of course. Beyond proper medications? I take sleeping pills for practical reasons, but otherwise, no. Not since the day I was released. No doubt they're a pleasant escape for those who choose to indulge. I never had that choice. The drugs were forced on me, and it never stopped. When I was finally free of them, I had clarity. A fog lifted. I never want to lose that clarity again. They barely fought back. They were slaves and captures, ripped from their ordinary, happy lives, forced into collars and told to kill or be killed. All they had was fear and hesitation. All I had was an entire life where the fear and hesitation was whipped, beaten, and starved out of me. And when killing them was the only surefire method of making my own pain end, when it actually brought me something akin to happiness. My emotions died when I was first purchased from my parents. All the same, the raiders managed to force a degree of bloodlust on me. It ended in blood as it began. As with everything else in my life, freedom was forced on me. I never chose to escape. As large and cruel as the raider gang was, they made enemies. One of these enemies hired an assassin to end the threat once and for all. There was no grand battle. One morning I woke in my cell to the sounds of gunfire and yelling. Then, silence. Some minutes later, a stranger strolled into the holding cages. He looked at all of us chattel, and then he unlocked our cells, told us we were free. The other children, they despised me almost as much as they feared me. They had seen me as I killed every slave that was sent against me. They watched the raiders praise me for killing their friends and family. In their eyes, I was the embodiment of all they had suffered. When they were given their freedom, they decided to tie up the last loose end. Maybe they thought I wouldn't fight with no raiders directing me. But I did. Instead of enjoying their newfound freedom, they all died at my hands. The assassin watched it all, never interfering. When it was over, he told me that if I wanted, I could come with him, that he would teach me how to use my talents properly. What could I do but accept? I knew nothing of freedom. I would have made a mess of myself. Perhaps, but when a group is rushing for blood, my thoughts don't immediately turn to how I can subdue them non-lethally. And really, the thought of mercy never crossed my mind. All of my experiences taught me that life is cheap and easily thrown away. They wanted me dead. I wanted to live. Somebody is going to lose in that equation, and I wasn't going to let it be me. The man who had rescued me brought me with him. As he promised, he began to teach me his trade. I had experience with killing, and my instincts were sharp, but I lacked finesse, let alone experience with weaponry or subtler methods. He taught me to shoot, to wield a blade, to move silently and unseen. I already knew how to read, but he gave me a real education. If I failed a task, disappointed him in some way, he would lecture me harshly and then let me try again. He was strict, but never cruel. Soon, I was accompanying him on missions. He would offer advice and make suggestions, but for the first time, I had autonomy, real freedom. We weren't close, and our relationship was never anything more than professional. He simply wanted to pass on his skills and knowledge. That never bothered me. He was the first person I ever met that didn't want me to suffer. In time, I became skilled enough to accept my own contracts without him. He had nothing left to teach me, so he stopped trying. We were just two independent murderers, living in the same building. And that's where my personal history ends. Everything between that point and us speaking right now falls into job details, which I don't discuss. He died. Not at the hands of another assassin, not to a botched job, not through any violent means. He died of lung disease. I could have thrown his body in the street, but out of respect I buried him in the desert, and took his blade for my own use. It serves me well. No. The past cannot be changed. Regrets only serve as a distraction, and my mind needs to be focused to be effective. Thank you. That is not necessary. As you say. Do you need something? And I may have answers. Ask. Yes? On which topic? I suppose. Interpret it as you want. I just don't have much to say. We only have so much time on Earth. Less than we usually expect. I'd prefer not to waste it on idle chatter. I don't talk about completed contracts. I'm paid for silence, not just killing. No, I've never catastrophically failed a job. Even if I did, I still don't talk about previous contracts. As I've said. Any assassin worth the title doesn't accidentally kill anyone. They kill who they mean to kill. No more, no less. I'm much the same. As for innocence, if you even believe in the concept, it isn't my place to make ethical judgments on my targets. But I've certainly killed my fair share of people that common society would deem innocent and worthy of protection. You know that cliché about the tortured assassin with a heart of gold, with strict rules of honor, never killing women or children? That isn't me. I've killed women, children, the unarmed and the defenseless. A target is a target. I don't care about the rest. And no, I've never felt one iota of guilt for any of it. I don't really feel anything at all, in any context. I'm rather cold-blooded. What? On which topic? I think that paranoia is wise. If you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, you're less likely to take a knife in the spine. But, unless you intend to turn on me, you have nothing to fear in that regard. I don't accept contracts on people that I know in any capacity. Even more important is that I'm already under contract to keep you alive. Of course, I would say the same thing if I really were plotting to kill you when you least expect it. I suppose you'll never know. When you say men, do you specifically mean adult males or just mankind in general? Because the latter number is far higher. As for specific numbers, I have no idea. Likely triple digits either way. I'm quite good at what I do, and my prices are very reasonable. Killing is my profession. I suppose I'm just not interested in making a sport of it, keeping track of numbers and personal records. I mean what I say. I have no feelings. My emotions are dead. I can experience some instinctual fear or frustration, but little more. Joy, rage, misery, lust. I have none of these things. It extends to physical sensations, too. I don't really feel pain or pleasure. Perhaps it's all a result of how broken my mind is, or maybe it's actually acute nerve damage. I don't know. I don't particularly care. Well, that depends on whether you believe the term actually has requirements before it can accurately apply to a person. There's no shortage of people who claim to be assassins. If you take them at their word, then the Mojave is flooded with the profession. And most of these sorts consider assassination to mean walking right up to their target and announcing their murderous intent. Then they die. In my eyes, they're nothing more than worthless thugs, not assassins. no matter how much they might crow otherwise. Actual professional killers who operate covertly and professionally are few and far between. So be it. They're mediocre, deluded assassins. I don't extend the effort of actively disliking things, but I find their notion to be repellent. A proper assassin is an implement of death, nothing more. When men make the decision to kill, some use blades, others bullets, some use people. It isn't personal, and I harbor no illusions of morality. I kill for money. If you put stock into ethics, it's an inherently evil act. But bounty hunters, headhunters, whatever their name, have it backwards. It's all personal to them. Their client is an afterthought. All the focus is on the heroic bounty hunter, profiting off of death while crowing about justice. They're a flashy tool, used to make a point about the reach and the righteousness of their clientele. I'm aware. Of your many apparent professions, you'll forgive me if there's at least one that I almost care enough to dislike. Fortunately, I don't really feel much about anything. If it makes you feel better, no doubt you could find some distasteful aspect of me as well. Probably involving dead children. That one never fails to offend someone. Yes. I wouldn't consider myself... Ready for an anticlimax. I purchased it, at an exorbitant price. I read about their uses and heard testament to how they were one of the few times Vault-Tec produced something that actually worked. I decided it would be a useful tool for my work. No doubt you agree from personal experience. Are you asking for personal reasons? I'm afraid I can't accept any contracts from you. I strongly prefer anonymity from my clients. Dead drops, encrypted communication, couriers. It's safer for them and for myself. But in general, I don't have a fixed price point. It depends on the target. Some random outlaw nobody, couple hundred caps. High-ranking military personnel, at least 1,000, likely more. President Kimball, 100,000, up front. Could I? Absolutely. Would I? Unlikely. The only ones I can think of with both the motive and the financial incentive would be the Legion. For a faction so enraptured by social Darwinism, they're rather infatuated with the notion that women are incapable of murder. Their loss. You have a remarkable talent for surviving attempts on your life, and it tends to go poorly for the prospective killers. Factoring personal risk, I'd require at least 50,000. Possibly more, depending on other factors. Next time some amateur killer fails to execute you, search their body for the death order they inevitably stuffed into their pocket. More likely than not, the payout being offered is laughably small, as if you needed further proof of how worthless an assassin they are. As you say. What? I wouldn't consider myself... I'm excellent at killing people. The entity that hired me wants me to follow you and kill anyone who would wish to do you harm. None of your enemies scare me, and I'm being paid a very agreeable amount, enough to retain my services over a long stretch of time. Somebody wants you alive, courier. Should you feel honored or terrified? If they haven't told you themselves, I'm not going to speculate on their identity or motives. I've worked for them before, and they've been reliable as far as clients are concerned. That's all you need to know. Nothing personal. Discretion is part of my contract. Well, first and foremost, I require half of my commission up front. If a prospective client can't manage that, then there's no deal. Beyond that, I'm not especially picky. Sometimes a client will be obviously untrustworthy, and I'll decline their contract for my own security. The most common reason for me to decline a job, though, is if I don't believe I could kill the target. A common example of this would be Kaisar. I've been asked to kill him more than once, but I've always refused. I see no way for a woman to get anywhere near Kaisar, except possibly through slavery, and slaves lack for both weapons and escape options. It isn't viable, and while I consider myself to be a consummate professional, I'm not so dedicated to my career that I'll kill myself in the attempt. However, if I accept a contract, it will be carried out. I won't be bribed, intimidated, coerced, or convinced. If I have a target, they will die. I'm not a particularly opinionated person, but I'll answer as I can. Pulse grenade to lock up their armor, and then a blade through the neck seam under their helmet. Kevlar is useless against blades. Oh, were you asking how I feel about their methods or philosophies? It seems pointless to me. Perhaps if I saw inside their secret little headquarters, I would formulate something resembling an actual opinion. Or perhaps not. He's dead. I don't bother forming opinions on corpses. If I did, I'd be too busy to do my job. Only so many hours in the day, you know? I'd prefer they don't take power, if for no other reason than my hunch that they'd take objection to everything I represent. Despite my sex, my only talents are killing. As if that weren't enough, I'm not even biologically capable of bearing children. If someone in the Legion wanted to purchase my services, fine. I don't pick and choose my clientele based on their personal ideology. But I suspect that wouldn't happen. If nothing else, the Legion seems quite firm in their beliefs, less likely to bend their own rules. Their loss. I suppose they'll just have to keep relying on their own assassins, shoddy and ineffectual as they may be. For a group espousing law and order and justice for all, my initial thoughts were that they would feel obligated to try and kill or detain me. But I've found numerous clients among their population, especially the upper echelons of their class hierarchy. The more a man espouses the importance of democracy and fair play, the more likely he is to hire me if he finds himself losing, I've found. Though that's not what you asked. My feelings on the Republic as a whole are quite similar to my feelings on everything else in life. That is to say, I feel nothing. I would approve. And I'd also recommend you hire someone skilled that can neutralize threats before they cause any trouble. I assure you, The leader of a commerce-centric independent city-state would be able to afford to keep me on retainer. I generally don't feel much of anything. The fiends aren't an exception. They don't hire me, and nobody else hires me to kill them. Fiend hunting is good publicity for headhunters and bounty killers. For killers that operate in the shadows, they're not worth the paltry bounties that army personnel and grieving families can offer up. I've done a job or two for the cons. Their feud with the NCR is a matter of blood, so hiring outside assassins is too impersonal. But if it's a matter of maintaining their stranglehold on the drug market, oh yes. They're quite willing to employ any means available. As for actual opinions, their war with the NCR is folly. It doesn't matter how tough they are. They don't have the numbers to win. The Brotherhood already learned that lesson, to their sorrow. And I can say from experience, members of the Brotherhood are harder to kill. If they truly wish to establish their own Khanate, they should evacuate the Mojave in short order. Worthless. There can be good money in performing jobs for criminal gangs, or for decapitating criminal gangs. But the powder gangers don't have the money to hire assassins, and they're too vulnerable for anyone to bother contracting me. I respect their conviction, even as I'm convinced that they're doomed to fail. Accessible medical aid and the free exchange of ideas are appealing concepts, and most followers I've met truly believe in what they're doing. However, they're operating from a perspective that most people are inherently good, which doesn't really seem to be true, in my experience. Blithely ignoring reality, no matter how well-intentioned, will eventually lead to sorrow and failure. It's only a matter of time. As you say. You're the courier. I know. I'm not Do you need something? My goal is to kill anyone that may wish to kill you, up until the terms of my contract end. That's it. I'm not haunted by some lingering threads of the past that I've yet to tie up, or anything to that effect. I have a handful of low-priority side jobs at the moment that I figured I would deal with during any breaks where I'm not shadowing you. Sure. I don't see why not. I can split the commission with you for each target. That's fair enough, certainly. I'll need to be present when you kill the targets, mind you. While I'm aware you're an experienced killer, they are still my contracts. The details are in my safe house. As my clients told me, there's no rush. I wouldn't be bothered if we didn't get around to any of these. This target should be simple enough. Apparently, he's totally alone. Fine work.
We've got stuff we're not even allowed to sell, people. Only at Mick and Ralph.
Mojave is lucky that Caesar's idiots are the only organized raider tribe they gotta deal with. The 80s would fuck this place up.
I was told this one killed the last assassin to come after him. He won't fare so well this time.
If it can be bought, it can be found at Mick and Ralph. Target spotted.
Mission accomplished. Time to get paid. I'll kill you all.
Hungry? Thirsty? Horny? The Atomic Wrangler has you covered.
We've got stuff we're not even allowed to sell, people. Only...
This target should be soft enough, but he'll likely be accompanied by some of his Kim addict clientele.
Watch out!
Had enough?
That should satisfy. What's wrong with me?
Lucky what we have here, ladies. Another unsuspecting pox.
You're going to start.
I'm hit!
Hey, you're the one who's been going around helping people around here, right? The king says to keep up the good work, and said to give you this.
Mojave is lucky that Caesar's idiots are the only organized raider tribe they gotta deal with. The 80s would fuck this place up.
A lieutenant in the Jackals. Shocking that a member of that worthless gang even managed to earn a price on his head. This is the emptiest town I've ever seen. Like it just rose up from the sand, half-formed out of some child's interpretive drawing of civilization.
Howdy.
that one won't be bothering anyone again. Time to get to work. Yes? And I may have answers. Ask. Assassins operating within his jurisdiction.
You reload your own brass? I never buy raw materials myself. Way faster and cheaper to buy surplus in bulk and break them down.
This is the final one of my side jobs. He'll be well equipped, but nothing beyond our abilities. Let's get to work. You're already dead.
You like that?
You're going to struggle.
I'm hit.
All right. That was the last of my side contracts. I appreciate your assistance. What? And I may have answers. Ask. Very well.